Hello everybody, welcome to EB Cubes. On this episode I wanted to go over some decks I've built in Milo's Cube on Cube Tutor. So the first deck here is called KJMB, something I made a few months ago. And as you can probably guess by the name, this is a Kiki Jiki deck. So what you've got is Kiki Jiki Mirror Breaker right here. That taps to put in a token of target non-legendary creature, then you sacrifice it at the end of the turn. The combo with this card is a card like Pestermite. So this, when it comes into play, taps or untaps a permanent. Untap Kiki Jiki, rinse and repeat, and attack with a million hasty dudes. I really like this type of deck because I love that, single turn I win factor in Cube. Sometimes you end up in, kind of back and forth games, grindy games, something that, is kind of slipping away, and then bam, suddenly you just win out of nowhere. Another combo with Kiki Jiki in the same deck is Zealous Conscript. This is a lesser known one. I mean, it's not in any sort of constructed decks or anything like that, but if you make a Zealous Conscript with Kiki Jiki, you can gain control of your own Kiki Jiki, untap it, and then make another Zealous Conscript, and basically you're on the same combo as Pestermite. So that works as well as Zealous Conscript simply being a powerful card that you would kind of want in a deck like this. This deck is just straight red-blue. It's abusing things like Jace the Mind Sculptor, just because it's a card that's abusable on its own. Snapcaster Mage works well with a lot of instants and sorceries. I've got a Mimic Vat here. I like to play Mimic Vat in a deck like Kiki Jiki because if I have it out when, I play a Pestermite without the combo or whatever, it dies. I can put it under Mimic Vat, later on play Kiki Jiki, and the combo is alive. So Mimic Vat helps that out. Other than that, it's just a lot of burn. I mean, you can deal lots of damage with Inferno Titan if you clone it. Same with just putting things under Mimic Vats and getting lots of damage out of them. Murderous Redcap does that as well. I mean, Char, Stagger Shock, these all just give you Reach, Incinerate. Looking at the deck and the sideboard's just down here. If I were to critique the deck, I would probably make just a couple changes seeing what I left in the sideboard here. I think I might remove Stagger Shock and a Willbender here and replace them with a Sphere of the Suns and a Siege Gang Commander. Siege Gang, again, just to get more tricks out of the deck, and it deals a lot of damage. And Sphere of the Suns to help accelerate into those 4 and 5 drops. Skull Clamp seems to be a card I picked up during the draft, but I just don't really think it fits in here. I don't want to be playing cards that may not do things for a few turns like that. Fire Imp. That's a nice old school Cube card that could probably fit into this deck as well. But I mean, that's the thing about Cube. You're always going to have cards you have to cut. And depending on the deck you end up playing, you can then swap cards out that would be better in that matchup. So yeah, this is sort of a red-blue Kiki Jiki deck. Sort of the thing I like doing in this Cube. And next up, we've got a deck here called Sublime Crusader. Obviously named for Sublime Archangel and Mirror Crusader. So it's the type of deck that would fit those cards. Basically it's a white weenie deck, so playing nice old school stars like Isamaru, Hound of Konda, with other Savannah Lion type creatures, Elite Vanguard, Soldier of the Pantheon. A new addition here is Herald of Anafenza. The deck is black and white, lightly splashing black for Nezumi Grave Robber, Dothi Marauder, Vindicate, and most importantly, Mind Twist. It's nice because we got Godless Shrine, Scrubland, and Windswept Teeth, which fetches the black, so the mana really wouldn't be a problem. This type of deck also functions based on Stoneforge Mystic and powerful equipment. So having Sword of Fire and Ice to fetch up and put on your Elite Vanguard or your Stormfront Pegasus or whatever it is, it's going to be pretty important in a deck like this. Another key card I like is Armageddon. Once you've dropped a whole bunch of aggressive, 1, 2, 3 drops, follow it up with Armageddon and cruise your way to victory. I would say Parallax Wave also serves an important function here. Essentially it's a one-sided Wrath, because if you can keep it around for 1 or 2 turns and remove blockers while, getting in there with your Flicker Wisps and your Mirror Crusaders, you basically can just win. Sublime Archangel is very powerful. Having Exalted for all creatures means that if you've got, that one creature that's punching through, like Stormfront Pegasus or Mirren Crusader because of its protection from black and green, then you can just win off of 1 or 2 hits here. Revelark gets lots of these lower drop creatures, anything with 2 power or less, including Mirren Crusader. Lingering Souls is great. Obviously, if you're playing black and white, you want to play this. Oblivion Ring for removal. That's why the black is here too, for something like Vindicate. And yeah, I mean, it's a really straightforward deck. It's running Mutavault too, but it's just looking to really start getting aggressive, get creatures in there, using Imposing Sovereign, for example, to ensure that you can keep attacking through blockers played that turn. An interesting card as well is something like Mirror Weave. If, let's say, I've got a bunch of creatures, maybe they're tokens from Herald of Anafenzo, or they're flying tokens, or whatever, just a bunch of weenie dudes, and one nice creature, like a Flying Flicker Wisp, or a Mirren Crusader, or something like that, why not Mirror Weave them, and go in for the Alpha Strike, probably win too. Looking at the sideboard, not too many sideboard options. Good cards like Vidalcan Shackles, Lightning Greaves, and so on. But other than that, yep, just a white weenie. This deck here is called Passenger 57. That's based on the movie of the same name, if you may recall, starring Wesley Snipes. He let us all know, always bet on black. So this here is a mono black deck, kind of a rarity in Cube. Mono black is not really where you want to be with most decks. It can leave you very restricted in terms of the cards you can play and so on, but with the addition of a lot of newer sets, there have been better and better cards, so sometimes it becomes possible. I would say a lot of something like a mono black deck hinges on being able to play a card like Pack-Rat. Pack-Rat is very powerful. It lets you go all in. You can just play Pack-Rat and keep trying to make that work. Liliana of the Veil is another reason to be heavy black, and she just works fantastically. If you have things to discard, like Grave Callers, for example, or if you're using a card like Recurring Nightmare, which is really one of the best cards in Cube, you can do some very, very busted things. So here, discard outlets, cards that like to be in the graveyard, graveyard tutors, essentially, like Entomb. And then following it up with a card like Living Death. This is again another build around me card. If you can get things into your graveyard and start Living Death, then you're off to a good start. Also along the Gravecrawler plan, I like Liliana's Reaver as a zombie here that can help out with it. Don't have too many other zombies, but overall it's still okay. It's just something you can even use with Recurring Nightmare as a cheap guy to start getting back better creatures like Bloodgift Demons or Sundering Titans or Inkais. I would say Sundering Titan fits very well into this deck because we are mono black, so it's not going to hurt us very much coming in and out of play. And if we've got something like Recurring Nightmare or Animate Dead to bring it back, that could be a good path to victory. Another reason to be playing black, Mind Twist, again, one of the best black cards you can possibly find. So yeah, if you hit a critical mass and you decide, you know what, I just don't need other colors, a mono black deck can happen, but you need a variety of cards, card draw, good creatures. You get to make use of something like Hymn to Tourach. Hymn to Tourach is very difficult to play outside of a very heavy black deck, if not mono black. And then having access to something like Damnation, really gives this deck a lot of punch and a lot of versatility to deal with different situations. Rishadan Port and Mishra's Factory are essentially free in terms of, they're not fixers, but that doesn't matter when you're monocolored. Looking at the sideboard, essentially it's just a whole bunch of things that aren't black. What you may notice is Dark Confidant. That's not in the main deck. It could easily have been, but I'd have to start really thinking about removing things like Inkais and Sundering Titan, which I didn't want to do. I want to have big creatures to get back with Recurring Nightmare, so that's the style of deck I would rather play. I definitely could have splashed blue, but the blue cards are heavy blue if you notice. Mana Drain, Counterspell, True Name Nemesis. It may have paid off to go in that direction, but this was a nice opportunity to be mono black and, you know, have it fully functional, have a nice diversity of cards that actually create a whole deck. And finally, here for you I have a bonus deck from Ben's Cube. Ben runs CubeTutor.com, so I thought it would be a nice idea to show you a deck made from his cube. And in this draft, I took an Oath. Oath of Druids. This is an unusual card to see in a cube, I think. From what I've seen, it's cut most of the time. It's a difficult card to make it work, but it's a very interesting kind of combo-y oriented card that makes use of gigantic creatures and very low creature counts to be able to oath up what you're looking for. Of course, it's great if you're able to cheat a creature into their side of play with what is that, Forbidden Orchard or something like that. I forget the name of that card. But anything that gives them creatures. However, in Cube, you're likely to face off against decks that have creatures anyway. And if you're not playing them and you play an Oath, then you can hit what you're looking for. This deck does run 4 creatures, and I am not sure that it should. Wall of Roots, Eternal Witness, Indrik Stomphowler, and then the Blightsteel. I would probably replace Indrik Stomphowler and Wall of Roots with just a couple forests. By default, I ended up going with 17 lands and 23 spells, and in a deck that's running Life from the Loam and is, you know, trying to chew through a lot of cards, I think that was probably a mistake. 19 lands and 21 other spells would really make sense, I think, and allow me to use the Oath a little bit better without hitting, you know, just a Wall of Roots randomly. The Oath of Druids, of course, is only one card in the deck, so you might end up playing a bunch of games where you never see it. The deck has to function without it anyway. So I did go with Life from the Loam and Crucible of Worlds via Strip Mine. So that definitely gives the deck a bit of punch. Some, you know, it's crippling. It's not the fun type of deck to play against, but, you know, you take what you get. I did get a fast bond, so through Crucible of Worlds, I can just strip mine all their lands by paying extra life. Stone Rain does that. Chaos Orb does a lot of things, but it destroys land. Tangle Wire tangles up lands for a few turns. I've got Felwar Stone and Sphere of the Suns to accelerate myself a bit. Awakening Zone makes dudes, but I can sacrifice them if I want to meet the condition for Oath of Druids. A couple Planeswalkers, Chandra, Garruk. You know, Garruk untaps lands, may give me a bit of extra mana to, you know, play around with stuff. Chandra is interesting if you can duplicate something like a Stone Rain, or, you know, duplicate another spell like a Plow Under that could be very, very, very bad for the opponent. Speaking of Plow Under, here it is. The Indrik Stomphowler, like I said, it probably should just be a forest. Primal Command is actually a cool card in this deck too. Gaining life is definitely one of the options that I like here, but being able to deal with just a regular non-creature permanent, putting that on top of their library, again, it does do that to lands. Shuffling your graveyard back into your library if you need to do that. Tutoring up a creature card, again, so it's not in the way if you end up Oath of Druiding later, or if I have enough mana to actually just play Blightsteel Colossus, maybe I can do that. Rolling Earthquake, All is Dust, Bonfire of the Damned. These are some sweepers, so they're in the deck. A couple cards I don't really like are probably Green Sun Zenith and Relic of Progenitus. Relic I just put in because I was like, okay, I need to fill up space and whatever. But I don't really think it should be in this deck, especially if I end up crippling myself, you know, using it poorly when I need it to Life from the Loam or play lands off Crucible or lose my Strip Mine or whatever it is. So those are problem cards. It could work against a graveyard strategy if I see some sort of, you know, reanimating deck or whatever. You know, it's okay, but it is just filler. From the sideboard, I think I would probably put in Jocklehops. So if I removed Green Sun Zenith or Relic, probably Green Sun Zenith at this point, I think. It really wouldn't do anything if I replaced Stomphowler and Wall of Roots with Forest. Having another land dispel would be kind of cool. Dream cards for the deck that I was really looking to see were Manlands, Mishra's Factory, Mutavault, those would have been great. Eldrazi, you know, to be able to hit with the Oath of Druids. Progenitus works, Terastodon works, even maybe resetting itself for another Oath next turn, because if you give the opponent those little 3/3 elephants, then you can do it again. But yeah, this is the Oath of Druids deck. Interesting. I don't know if it's the best, but it's definitely a nice challenging way to try and draft a cube deck.